Well, let's hop into some questions. The question on everybody's mind: can I sell my house during this COVID-19 pandemic?
That's a great question. So absolutely, yes, you can sell your house during this COVID-19 pandemic. It has been interesting. The week that we went into quarantine here in Springfield, we listed 4 houses and we had all 4 go under contract immediately. So there's an inventory shortage right now. So that is lending itself to sometimes a quick sale, and things can move rather quickly. But the question is, can I sell it? Absolutely, yes. We're seeing a healthy market right now and definitely a need for listings in our Springfield area. The impacts that we are seeing is there are some people afraid of listing right now. They're a little intimidated. We would say because of the precautions we're taking, don't be afraid. We will make sure and do everything we can to keep people safe and all. But the inventory shortage is really impacting our market quite a bit. So when we have a house that goes live, if it's priced right, in decent condition, and in a good area, it's gone very, very quickly.
Ryan, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I would agree with Susan implicitly. I think that the biggest challenge we're having in the current market is that there's not enough inventory, which is a benefit for someone who wants to sell. Ultimately, when there's less inventory and more demand to buy a home, it's driving prices up really quickly. I think the biggest impact of everything going on right now is just a lot of psychological impact. You're ultimately seeing some people that are just right now not comfortable with it, and rightfully so. But there's a lot of psychology in the obviously of just everything that's going on with the pandemic, with the economy, we're walking into an election. So there's a lot of volatility in the world right now. And I think that psychologically it has some people kind of just frozen on what they want to do.
Do you guys feel like it's safe right now to sell your home?
I do think it is safe. I think that the National Association of Realtors, local boards have made such an effort to put forth safety in selling and buying homes, because ultimately so many of them were deemed essential when they first started, when the pandemic kind of first started and everyone went to shutdowns and stuff like that in quarantine. I think that professional realtors have really taken it serious on the precautions, the extreme measures we go through. We sit down with our clients and talk about what that looks like, recommendations that we make to limit the amount of friction, contact, the amount of foot traffic, stuff like that through a property. But ultimately, it always comes down to our sellers' comfort level of the exposure. Some of our sellers have ultimately decided they are not comfortable with selling despite them still feeling that it's safe. So then we talk about more virtual measures to sell their home, which is something that has become really, really prevalent to the market today, is selling virtually without actually having foot traffic through it. But ultimately, I do think that we are taking extreme measures to make it as safe as possible.
I would agree with Ryan on that. We have had a case where we had a client who could not come to town. They were a buyer. They could not come to town, and we had to FaceTime the property with them and show them the properties. They weren't able to come because she was pregnant. I had a good feel for what they were looking for, but that's the direction we went with them. They were not allowed to travel because of COVID-19. So we found a house for them. They closed on it. They didn't see it until after they moved here, which does happen occasionally in our market. We are sitting down as well with our clients and saying what needs to happen. We can do listing appointments virtually, so we don't have to meet in person if that eliminates just some contact. We can also do the visuals, the videos, so that people can see it and decide if they even want to come take a look at the house. I carry Clorox wipes in my car, and I use those to open doors, make sure that when we leave, we don't touch anything that we don't need to. And I ask our clients to make sure that they not touch anything. I open doors for them and very careful about that. We also wear booties. On our listings, we have certain things we leave at the front door, and it's just, this is how we're going to do it. You're going to wear booties in the house. You're going to wear, the agent's going to show with the hand sanitizer, the wipies, whatever we need to do to make sure that we stay safe. And then we ask realtors to not turn lights off. We just leave the house as it is. So when they come in your house, there's minimal contact on anything. And that certainly has helped a whole lot. But bottom line is we want to eliminate as much contact as we can with anybody.
Are you listing houses currently? And if you are listing, how quickly are you seeing houses come off the market?
We are obviously currently listing houses. There's some price point variation in how quickly a house will sell. Obviously, the condition, the location always plays a role in that. The pricing, it still needs to be priced correctly. However, we are pricing things at the top of what we think it will bring because we're seeing higher offers. We're seeing multiple offers on houses right now. So if they're staged and they're properly photographed, which is something that we do, we use a professional photographer, and then we offer staging consultations as well. And if we have all of the ducks in a row, have the pricing right, we're seeing a good amount of houses sell. Our market is flooded right now with new construction. So in some price points, the new construction is competition for some of our older houses. That's the only issue that I see right now is being a holdup. And there's a threshold of certain price points that do lag a little bit because there's, 2 miles down the road, there's a brand new housing addition. So we would make every seller aware if that were the issue with them so that they would be prepared for that competition.
And I think that, just like Susan said, I think that you're seeing the majority of our country right now is in a pretty imbalanced market. It's a very, very strong seller's market, which obviously you would want to be a seller in a seller's market. The largest reason for that is, especially in Northeast Ohio and a lot of other cities, one of our busiest times of year is March and April. Well, it just so happens that in March and April, the world was shut down, right? And there was not a lot of consumer confidence. And even in the beginning of May, people were still uncomfortable bringing their home to the market. And so what you saw was just this unique time where normally when most of the inventory would be coming on, nothing came on. And so what's happened is towards the middle of May, June, and July, there's all these buyers that were still in the market that would normally be there during the spring market, but such little inventory. So now houses that are coming on are getting absorbed so quickly by the buyers because they're all just waiting. Each house that comes on, every buyer rushes to. There's multiple offers. Only one can get it. And then they're all waiting for the next home to come on. So houses are definitely selling quickly. It's just more strategically on how do we position it so that you as a seller have the most amount of leverage and you're most comfortable in the process or the timetable, stuff like that.
Will I have competition right now? Is there going to be a lot of competition? Am I going to be competing against the person down the street? What does that look like right now?
I would say in every market and every price point is different. Kind of our threshold where all of a sudden you start to see more competition is north of $500,000. Really anything under that, unless you're in a more rural community or a place where there's just not a big buyer pool, there is very, very little competition from the seller side.
I would agree with what you said, Ryan. In our market, there is the new construction that's in the Springfield, the very close to Springfield area, is kind of in the 300,000 and 400,000 in new construction. And what we're finding is a lot of buyers now, they want a smaller house with nicer finishes than a larger house with older, more dated finishes. So we have to meet literally with people case by case and say, based on what we know about the market in your price point, your neighborhood, and your house, we can expect this and this to happen. So we just really need to meet with you and make sure that we understand what your plan is and educate you about your neighborhood. But we're seeing very little competition except for the new construction. That seems to be our one competition right now.
Should I expect to sell for less right now during the COVID market? And then how would you guys have that conversation with me, or what are some things I need to think about when I'm thinking about putting my house on the market?
The only way that I could anticipate someone expecting to sell for less is if the market changes significantly we are constantly watching a lot of ultimately national variables that affect market value, right? So right now, one of the big things is interest rates are extremely low. And the higher unemployment goes, the more that affects and drops interest rates, right? If all of a sudden we start to see the interest rates start to rise rapidly, all of a sudden that might stall the market out a little bit. If all of a sudden there's another large spike from the pandemic, that might all of a sudden halt the market a little bit. So I wouldn't expect to sell for less unless there's a variable in the economy or some kind of global, variable that gets introduced that all of a sudden just really halts consumer confidence. And that's just something that none of us can predict, especially like I was saying earlier, especially how volatile the world is right now. But ultimately in the current market that we are in, there really isn't such a thing as selling for less, just given how short inventory is from the seller side.
One thing too, and this is a touchy subject, but we are coming up to an election. Doesn't really matter who wins in the case that every year, and Ryan, I don't know if you've seen this trend, but things do tend to slow down a little bit during the election time. People are just waiting to hear what the outcome is going to be. We see that a little bit in our market. It's just like in the summertime, the month of May, things slow down a little bit when we see people go on vacations. In a normal year, not this year, in a normal year, we see this 3-week period where people go on vacations and they're not making moves, and then all of a sudden they get back and they want to move really quickly before school starts. So we see a few variables like that that can play into it. But right now, and if the house is priced right, it's going to, again, a good location. We're not seeing that be a problem to sell for less.
If I said to you, I want to put my house on the market today, can you talk me through what it would look like if I wanted to go a virtual option versus going an in-person option? So if you guys were coming in person, what do I need to be prepared for? If we were going to try to sell my house today virtually, what does that look like?
Ironically, we have not had a lot of issues with people not wanting buyers coming through the house. We have limited it to decision makers only. At some point, that was a thing, especially during quarantine. We were still able to sell listings, but we did try and limit how many people came through the house. But we've just not had that as an issue. We do obviously have the video, FaceTime, whatever we need to do to show the house to be safe if people want. It just hasn't been an issue here as much, but we do also we can provide the aerial views and all that.
Before we understand or identify that, we like to ask a lot of questions identifying what your goals and motivation are. Once we identify what your goals and motivation are, if there is a need to sell your house, whether you're already bought something, you're moving out of state, whatever it may be, okay, then we start shifting to what does this look like to bring it to market.
One thing too is finding out from our sellers, can you go ahead and move out of your house and move into the retirement community now, and then we list your house, then we can stage it and get it prepared that way and keep everybody safe? Or do you need to be in the house while that's happening? And in that case, we just have to dialogue with what your comfort level is. We have listed houses without ever going in them before. We had the buyers or the sellers take video and send it to us, and very, very minimal contact as we needed to. But for the most part, people are okay with buyers coming in their house. They're just asking that we take the precautions, but we can definitely do it.
What are some steps I should be taking before I put my house on the market, or what would you suggest my next step be if I'm wanting to figure out selling my home?
I would recommend you call us first so we can kind of talk about what you need to do. I think sometimes we get into homes that people thought they've already done their due diligence or prepared for, or whatever it may be. And then once they get a professional's opinion, it becomes discouraging when we bring different advice or a different strategy or whatever it is. So I think the first thing, even if you're considering it, I think most, top realtors in your respective markets ultimately will invest time into sitting down with the seller to create a plan, to identify or to learn a little bit more about what their goals are. And then our job is to create, we tell our clients, we do a lot of heavy lifting on the front end to make it really easy for them once we choose to go to market. And I think sometimes if people try to do it all on their own and then they call us, they're just working harder and not smarter.
If we can get in the front door and talk to people first, sometimes we save them money. They're thinking they need to make certain upgrades or do improvements to their house, or they're getting hung up over little details that right now are not a big deal in the market. So we would rather come and visit with you up front and say, okay, what do you need to have happen? How fast do you need to have happen? And no, you don't need to make those improvements, but you might want to do this, this, and this. And we can tailor for every house, this is what we feel like you need to do to get the house sold. And by doing that, almost every single time we meet with a seller before they start doing the work, we end up saving them money because they were getting ready to do something that we don't feel needs to be done.
If you're receiving offers right now, is the process changing through COVID, or is it still pretty standard as to how I would move from selling to sold?
Things are pretty much the same. We have systems now where people can sign documents online. We've fully taken advantage of that. We always have, but now, especially during this time, it eliminates a little bit more contact. So that helps significantly, but we can still meet with people in their homes if that's what they prefer. But we're definitely keeping contact minimal if we can. And it does save a lot of time. We can teach people how to sign the documents online. If you don't have email, I have a client that lives so far away that we have to mail her the documents and she signs them and sends them back. So we can work with that, whatever scenario you have. But the technology to sign can be done on your phone. It's super easy to do that. Or if you don't and you want us to meet you, we can definitely come out and do that. So
the only thing I would add to that is if the only really change we've seen is just adding in a lot of states have created a COVID addendum, which basically says if the state or city or area were to go on a lockdown or quarantine, and if everything was shut down, that it gives the buyer and seller a little bit of flexibility on the closing date versus it being so rigid to these obligatory dates in a contract. That's really the only change that I've seen.
What advice do you have for people looking to sell right now?
I think the best advice I can offer is, first off, talk to a professional. We are in one of the most unique markets that I've seen since I've been doing this, and markets are constantly changing. And if you look at where the world was in February to where it went to March and April to where it is in May, ultimately it's changing relatively quickly. So you need to be in contact with someone that has a really, really strong kind of feel of what the pulse of the market is. Because there are times over the past 4 or 5 months where I've told clients all of a sudden, we need to hold, let's wait to see what happens over the next week or two. And there are times where I'm recommending to my clients to, expedite their decision-making process or bringing their home to market. And then once you talk to a professional, something that is so important is make sure that the professional is asking you a lot of questions to really identify what is important to you. I think a lot of realtors right now are getting very gung-ho with how strong of a seller's market it is. And they're just making the assumption that you need to get on the market as soon as possible because you're in this really strong seller's market. And I think without them asking the right questions to identify timetables, goals, stuff like that, all of a sudden it might feel like there's a lot of pressure coming from them when the pressure is really coming from what the market is doing right now and they want to see you capitalize, but that's not everyone's motivation every time. So you want to make sure that you're talking to someone that you trust, someone that has a strong grasp on what the market is doing, and someone that's ultimately taking the time to really learn what's important to you. And if you're not getting that, I would recommend getting a second opinion.
Start with calling the professionals in. If you don't know who to call, reach out to the community that you're in, the senior communities. I know that they all have realtors of choice in the Springfield area. We are more than happy to talk to anybody. But we do want what's best for you. That's our heart. That's how I built the business that I have. it was basically understanding that every client's got different needs. We've got to meet those needs, and it's all about you all. It's not about what we want or what we need. It's definitely about what you need, and we want to help facilitate that for you. So just reach out to professionals. If you're not comfortable with what they're saying, get another opinion, talk to somebody else. That's perfectly okay to do that. That won't cost you any money either, but just be educated and let people that have been in the business, that understand what's going on, let them help you with that.
I will let Susan and Ryan give kind of like a little bit of a closing. If you don't have a realtor and you're looking for information on a potential realtor, we do have preferred providers at each of our communities, people that we've worked with, that we really trust and enjoy working with. So if you are at the place where you just want to dip your toe in the water of the conversation about what does selling my home look like, and start to get the feeling for that, I would always recommend ask your friends. They're going to be able to tell you who they sold their house with and why they like them and if they did or did not. We also have providers that we're happy to share with you. And then also, if you guys have any additional questions that you want to talk to us about, or if you want us to put you in contact with Ryan and Susan so that you guys can become email pen pals during this pandemic and they can be your real estate experts, you let us know on that. But thank you so much for coming and spending time with us today. We will be hosting more educational webinars through this experience. So if you do want to be a part of those, we're going to be talking about downsizing. We're going to be talking about professional planning, or financially planning for things. If you guys want to be a part of any of those pieces, please let us know. Susan, Ryan, anything you'd like to share with us as we head out today?
I would say, just for myself, I appreciate the opportunity. There is so much going on in the world right now, where it is just such unique times. And I think educate yourself as much as possible to what is going on. If this is a transition that you're thinking about making, educate yourself with, credible professionals that have resources that you trust ultimately to help you in such a big stage and commitment and transition in your life. And I just think that that knowledge is power piece to this is so important, and they should be able to, I forget who was asking it, but if you have a list of questions, don't be embarrassed. There is no bad questions. Like, get really comfortable with whoever's helping you, because this is a very important event in your life.
Don't be afraid to, there's no such thing as a bad question or a stupid question. So ask it, because chances are somebody else has asked it, and we can shed some light on that. I'd just say, I've been in the Springfield market now for 15 years. If you're in that area, we would absolutely love to help you. If you have a realtor that you have a relationship with, we honor that. We still want you to work with them. Ryan and I both come from Keller Williams, where it's a phenomenal company. So if you don't have anybody and you need some insight, one of us can help you find somebody that would be a professional, and we can interview them, make sure that you're getting a quality agent to work with. And then if you do have any questions, even if you're not in our market, if we can help you with anything along the way, just know that we've done this before, once or twice, and we do want to help. With all the things that we've learned through the years, we want to definitely help make this as easy as we can with you and build that rapport and that relationship with you, and make this transition as smooth as we can for you, because we know it's a lot. In your cases, many of you are downsizing you would be downsizing into a smaller community, a smaller home and all that, an apartment and all. And we've been through that before many times with our clients. And so we're sensitive to those needs. We're sensitive to the fact that you're not just buying a bigger, better house. You're moving out of a house you've made memories in, and you're letting go of a lifestyle that you were used to for years. So we want to be compassionate through that, understanding, and help walk you through that journey and provide you any resources that you need to make sure that when you go through it, you know who to call. Call us and say, I need a plumber in the area. I need somebody to help me pack. I need somebody to help me organize things. I need to have an estate sale. We can walk you through all those processes to make sure that that things are done in a good order and in your best interest. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Cassie. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we have loved having all of you. So have a great rest of your day, and we will hope to see you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.